Okay, great. Well, hello everyone. Thank you again for joining our webinar for today. It's a pleasure to see everyone or I guess get to have the opportunity to present to everyone. A lot of these were planned for NAB, but as we know, we're doing a more virtual style of a meet and greet this year in light of everything. I hope everyone is safe and well. My name is Seta Goldstein. I am the VP of Corporate Development here at Float Left, and I will be moderating our webinar for today. The topic of our webinar is Broadcasters and Pay TV, How to Win Back and Own Your Audience. Please feel free at any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit those in our Q&A section. You can also share within the comment section. I'll be looking at both during the end of the call. And then this call is actually going to be recorded, so I'm happy to share the recording after our call today, as well as the presentation. If at any point, as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to jot those down or send them our way through either the Q&A section or the comment section. So we'll go ahead and kick things off. For our agenda today, we're going to be doing introductions, as well as going over which business model is the right one for your video service, the importance of content catalog, how to differentiate your service using the right multi-screen user experience, and finally, how to market to your audience in this climate of heightened competition. First and foremost, we have Tom Schaefer. Tom Schaefer is our CEO and president. He founded Float Left 10 years ago. We actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. He founded this company as a software engineer and an entrepreneur, and has been working very hard ever since on bringing OTT service to multiple platforms, to multiple markets. And then here we also have Nick Fabrizio, Director of Sales. He has a very extensive cable and distribution background. He just joined our team recently, and he'll be working with a number of prospects and clients on launching their OTT services. And then last but not least, Seta Goldstein, again, VP of Corporate Development here at Float Left. So Tom, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and kick things over to you to give a little bit of background on Float Left.
Thank you, Seta. Yeah, so thank you everybody in this strange climate that we're in right now. I appreciate everybody's time. Yeah, so 10 years, it's been 10 years since we founded the company. We were very fortunate enough to have been Roku's first development partner. So Roku was just coming off of, this was like late 2009, early 2010. And Roku was just coming off of being the Netflix box, and they were starting to create an SDK. And but even pre-release of the SDK and pre-channel store, we were developing channels and established that first partnership with them before anybody knew anything about Roku, anything about OTT. It's kind of a funny story. I remember thinking about, we had access to one of their, their initial strategy that year was to just get 300 channels in their channel store. So it's been an incredible journey, and OTT wasn't even a thing. So it was, we definitely consider ourselves pioneers. At that time, we were developing a lot of technology that is old hat today, and even like ad insertion and making a better experience, and how to deal with fragmented platforms and different languages. All these we were developing for Boxy Box and Popcorn Hour and all these other devices that ultimately didn't survive. But again, it was just like kind of being in the trenches and being very innovative, and it was a very interesting time. We've done hundreds of apps, deployed OTT apps. We're grassroots OTT. That was the basis of our founding, was on the idea that we were going to be building applications for TV for companies that wanted to move into this new landscape of television. And then as I mentioned, developing now for 12 plus platforms in a still very fragmented ecosystem. And along the bottom there, we've just got some of our logos and brands that we've had the good fortune of working with. NBC Sports, we did the Super Bowl, World Cup, and the Olympics with NBC Sports, and we did CBS Sports. We did the Super Bowl. We had a chance to work with Viacom. Viacom was one of our very first kind of. These guys were very forward thinking and in types of the interface and the design of their applications, and we were building very innovative experiences for them in the early days. And then yeah, you can see we have a lot of other great brands: Ovation Now, Business Insider, Crackle, again AMC, great brands, Pop, that we've had a good fortune of working with over the years. And so, during that time, as we were getting started and really starting to see the market pick up, we realized, okay, we definitely need to have a solution that we can launch quickly, and getting our partners on as many platforms as possible. But we also recognize that you cannot have a one size fits all solution for folks. And so we, and being in the app part of the ecosystem for as long as we have, I mean, that's been it was the basis of our founding, and what we've spent a decade of building experience on. We were able to, carve out a product that could really meet the demands of both the quick to market and the customized experiences that a lot of brands need today. So if you look at this little Venn diagram off to the right here, you can see where we sit. Generally there's two polarized solutions in the marketplace. You've got a quick to market, which means generally it means that these are video platform first companies that are just creating these template apps that you can get into, but they're so rigid and they're so inflexible that maybe it's good for the first 30, 60, 90 days, but then as the brand starts to get traction and they need customized features and they get feedback from the viewers, they just find that they're trapped. They don't have a lot of flexibility. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the bespoke, custom, tend to be longer to market, longer development cycles, a little bit more costly. And so there has to be a solution that meets the demands of the more sophisticated brands that have maybe even a built-in audience, like the broadcasters, the pay TV folks that are trying to get into OTT. And so that's where Flycast fits. It's been in development for years. It's been and it's all the great brands that we've had the good fortune of working with over the years. We're bringing all that technology to bear into the product to really create a very robust solution. So I just wanted to put that in here. It's powering millions of OTT and TV everywhere experiences across the globe today. It's been a phenomenal success for us. And yeah, just to throw some logos up here. And by the way, I mean, these slides are really just to build some credibility with everybody. We want to make sure that we know that, give a little bit of background about who we worked with, and you can see that there's a diverse set of brands in here. You get some TV everywhere, so cable networks that are now moving into OTT, like Pop and Ovation. You've got some phenomenal advertising first brands, like pure OTT brands like Popcorn Flicks and Crackle, kids content, for Sesame Street, NBC Sports. So we've done the live, we've done the big broadcasters, we've done AMC. We actually just released Tidal not too long ago as a music service on the Roku platform, and of course Viacom and Magellan. Just great brands, a diverse range of business models and verticals there. So we've got a lot of experience that we bring to the table. And just to cap it off, I mean, this week we just announced the release of our application management platform, which has been, at least in our minds, it's been something that we've been working on for years. We've worked with a lot of, as traditionally we've been an integrator, so we've been focused on that last mile, that what the user is actually engaging with and interacting with on the screen. But we've also come across a lot of challenges as it relates to workflow and publishing and organizing content, especially within through the lens of an OTT workflow. A lot of cloud CMS platforms, video platforms tend to be a little bit more, even today, still very web centric, mobile centric, and it's hard for them to accommodate some of the OTT specific features or workflow items that need to be addressed. So, things like just being able to publish across platforms, being able to just things that are very intuitive. Like you want to be able to create. We look at everything with this platform. We look at everything in terms of screens. So essentially, what you're doing is that you're building a set of screens, which is very familiar from for the 10-foot experience. Screens have playlists. Playlists have maybe a series or episodes. Being able to attach episodes to a season, to a series is not generally very intuitive, and making that very easy and very simple to manage was one of our main objectives. And this is the foundation for a lot of our future products, which we're going to be getting into a lot more very specific OTT analytics, engagement metrics, and we're building on a phenomenal sort of laying the groundwork for a lot of these new features as we roll forward here. But this was a big moment for us this week, getting this live, and we're very excited about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom, for that overview. Nick, if you don't mind, I'd love to kick this over to you. Given your background, it would be super helpful for us to go through the various business models, identifying, of course, TV Everywhere, SVOD, AVOD as the more popular business models. In addition to this, which I know we don't have listed here, I would also like to make sure we touch on your thoughts on hybrid and, what's the best approach there.
Sure. So, hello, everybody. Great to talk with you. So, the bottom line is, when you step into the OTT world, there's really three, excuse me, there's three models essentially that you can look at. And that's TV Everywhere, which is TVE, SVOD, or AVOD. The choice that you make, first and foremost, depends on your current distribution, the current distribution of your brand, if you're distributed by large cable operators already and satellite providers, the depth of your library, or if you're established or a new brand. So if you're established, you've got a brand recognition. If you're new, you have other considerations. Excuse me, this is my voice here. To start off with TV Everywhere is essentially really a core, it's a staple for all of the major TV cable brands. It's simply an extension of their existing platform. It was something that was probably the earliest form of OTT for the most part, in the sense that it was part of a core cable deal where every brand worked with the cable operator to make their brand available in an OTT product. So for the most part, it was a linear channel, and then in many cases, people were adding in different levels of VOD to complement that. So the goal was to give the cable operator something sticky for their platform, but it also what it gave the content providers was a new way for customers to see them and to get a deeper relationship. The long-term goal for the content providers is simply to build that bridge from the core cable distribution to a direct-to-consumer approach, and which is still in the process, and we're definitely, I would say, way over the halfway point in terms of building that direct relationship. One of the challenges, I guess, for TVE is that you are reliant on your cable subscription. So if for some reason you're not carried, you don't have it. But at the other side of the equation, it's an opportunity to expose yourself to more of your existing viewers. And then basically, as I said, you kind of lead them over to the OTT world if you want to build that direct relationship. One of the best examples right now that I could think of for this would be Disney and Disney Plus. Disney, of course, has substantial relationships with the cable operators still on the actual cable platform side, but clearly with what they've done with Disney Plus, that's a direct-to-consumer brand. If we move to SVOD, your considerations simply are this is a subscription product. So your goal there is to have a deep library and to drive people to your platform who are willing to pay an incremental fee for that. You do need a decent library for that. You want to be deep enough so people have a nice refresh and a deep experience simply because they're paying that fee on a monthly basis. I guess you could say one of the challenges is the subscription fatigue, but that really depends. I mean, I think it's too early to say. Still, as much as OTT has grown, we are still to some degree in the honeymoon period in terms of customers trying a lot of platforms on the SVOD front, as well as the AVOD front, which we'll talk about in a moment. But again, the key is, and I think, Tom, I think you're going to get into this a little bit later, the key is all of the best practices in terms of getting awareness and building your brand in an SVOD model. The AVOD front is typically a free on-demand product with advertising support. So you're paying one way or the other. Either you're paying with a subscription or you're paying to watch ads. On the AVOD front, you'll watch the ads, but it's a great way to reach more people quickly simply because there's no barrier to entry. Assuming the customer can find your product on a platform, they can go to your channel, they can watch content they want to watch, and they'll be having ads. So the key there is driving your volume in terms of users, and then how that's going to play into your ad fill with programmatic barrier to entry. Just to sum it up, all of these models make sense. TDE is really for existing big brands. The other two models it could also be for large brands, but this is where the huge opportunity is for startups and entrepreneurs. Historically, there was really no entry point for a startup or an entrepreneur to secure distribution with major cable operators. Now, that's completely open now. You have this complete opportunity to reach directly out to consumers. It's really up to you how you do that and how you manage to succeed. That's
Great, thank you, Nick. And then just to touch on TV Everywhere, and I know we've mentioned this in one of our previous webinars, but I know we have a different audience. It would be good to understand in terms of, I would say, what was it, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, a lot of these cable networks, broadcasters really had to adapt more of a TV Everywhere style approach. Now they're a little bit more willing to potentially, cut out TV Everywhere, go more into the SVOD, AVOD style, or potentially a hybrid of TV Everywhere with AVOD, SVOD, as you mentioned. What are your thoughts on that? What are your recommendations?
Sure. Well, again, from a TVE perspective, my feeling is as long as the major content providers in particular have relationships with the cable operators, there will be some form of TV Everywhere product. The difference is, as said to your point, is that now as they've kind of crossed this midpoint of reaching out to consumers directly, the business models are changing, the technology is improving. You can clearly see how many OTT homes there are and how many people are viewing on OTT. It gives the large distributors, as well as the new entrants, an opportunity to create that direct correlation or that direct connection with their customer. So the end game, again, is to have that strong brand recognition with your customer. Your goal, clearly, if you can be there direct and essentially cut out the middleman, you're going to do that. However, again, if you're a big brand, you're kind of in the middle. You're not going to give up your core distribution at this point in time. So I say that's the challenge. But again, if you look at every major player, they're all now doing some form of SVOD or AVOD. Again, we talked about Disney. You can see what NBCU is doing with Peacock. It goes on and on. You've got every big brand out there is doing this. And those big brands are now playing in the same sandbox, essentially, with startups. So there's a huge opportunity for startups and entrepreneurs to build nice boutique businesses.
Great.
Hey, Nick, I have a question for you on the TVE front. I mean, is TVE, do you feel like that's a model that is it's a sort of a temporary kind of a holding pattern while, the operators sort of figure out how to deal with this and whether they actually, some of them are not going to survive, right? Is that a fair assessment that?
Yeah, again, it would be great to do an entirely separate webinar on this, but the traditional cable distributors as we know them today, and let's just talk about the large guys, your Charters with Spectrum, your Comcast with Xfinity, and pretty much all of them, but particularly these larger ones. They're in a very interesting place because from a technical perspective, whether you subscribe to your content through them or not, you're ultimately still using one of their pipelines, at least at this point in time, to access content, because you need a strong high-speed connection. And the more content goes OTT, the stronger that connection has to be. So they won't necessarily lose. They will succeed. It's just a matter of what they ultimately look like. So they'll still provide content. Yeah, they'll still provide packages and content. But again, they'll have different triggers and different bundle opportunities. But again, every time that a cable operator succeeds with a rich package, the more as we watch, more and more you're seeing products being embedded behind the cable paywall as an OTT product, such as we see a lot of that with Netflix. We're starting to see so many more brands come up behind the Comcast wall and the Charter wall. There's so much opportunity out there for every brand who wants to participate in the OTT space.
Thank you, Nick. And just to, follow up on that, and this will be the last question because I know we have more to cover, but, I do think there's an argument to be made, and I'm not really saying this about the Disneys and the HBOs of the world because they have a very, very strong brand recognition. So I don't want to consider them as the example.
for pay TV type of networks, folks that are smaller, considerably smaller, in the event that they were to go OTT, you know, as I mentioned, traditionally TV everywhere would have been the model that they followed. But with, you know, the cord cutting audience obviously growing, we see that report every month, every quarter, you know, would it be, I guess, you know, for lack of a better word, would it not be helpful for the TV Everywhere or that brand to only launch a TV Everywhere service? Wouldn't it be conducive to their bottom line to make sure that they are including additional ways to watch their content that is not necessarily behind the authentication layer?
Absolutely, and that's what we're starting to see more and more of. I mean, again, we don't want to always talk about these the mammoth media companies, but you could just see very clearly with Disney being the example, or Warner Media with HBO Max. But again, I think if we have to look at the space holistically, you have to look at companies like that as think of a mall. Basically, these are the anchor stores in the digital mall. That's what they are. But what happens? People go to the anchor stores, but then they have the opportunity to sample all of the niche brands. And that's where there's a huge opportunity again. Like, they will continue to operate the way they operate and essentially control the largest populations of viewers, I guess you'd say, because of their brand recognition. But they're also creating a nice halo exposure for all of the startup brands and the mid-sized brands.
Great, thank you so much. And Tom, I don't want to leave you off. I know you've had a lot of great experience just working on the AVOD side of the world. Is there anything that you would like to touch on that?
Well, I just think that, you know, what we're seeing now with CTV advertising is that there are a lot more advertisers that are getting into it. They're having more confidence in obviously what's going on with OTT, so they're having more confidence. They're spending more. But you know, those ecosystems are also becoming somewhat sanitized and protected for good reason. You know, there's tends to be a little bit of, well, not a little bit. There was for a few years a lot of fraud going on in terms of with the SSPs and how and the inventory. But there's this, what's happening out there is there's a great sort of ecosystem evolving around advertisers and content publishers. And so, well, which is going to maintain that high CPM, which is what everybody wants. But I think, you know, that, so that's the benefit. So there's a lot of, you know, a lot of attractive advertisers that are moving into AVOD, but you know, it does take some, as you have here for the one of the cons on AVOD, you do have some more higher volume requirements for steady, consistent inventory when it comes to programmatic. But again, I think once you've kind of reached that point where you're demanding those that inventory, I think everybody wins, because these are much more high quality ads. They're being, you know, they're targeted. We're also working as part of our AMP product, going to be providing better data to some of the SSPs for specific types of targeting to help out that, you know, just to make, because we believe that that's all part of the experience that you have. You want to have the right ad in front of the right person. So, yeah, as Nick mentioned, you know, the fact that there's very, very low barrier to entry, you could just put a library out there and keep going is just a very great, it's a huge opportunity for everybody, for both consumers and the publishers.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the importance of the content catalog, and this is, you know, essentially programming. So Nick, I would love to hear your thoughts on this slide, and just in general, you know, we see with what happened with Disney and with what happened with HBO Max, how they took Friends off of Netflix specifically. That was a personal, you know, I was upset about that. But, you know, I'd love to hear your feedback on this slide, and just in general, how important it is not only to obviously have original content, but even just windowing strategy.
Yeah, sure. So, well, you know, there's two types of kings in content, in my opinion. Is the, you know, the proverbial content is king. The better the content, the richer the content, the better you'll succeed. But there's also the, again, the niche or the unique content, which now in this world we have an opportunity to seriously explore, because again, there's no barrier to entry. So you could have a very niche brand and be very successful if you do the right marketing and promotion. But the windowing is absolutely critical for all brands, and particularly, I would say, your larger brands, because you have content that may be out there again on a traditional platform or a TV everywhere platform, which essentially is traditional. But you need to have some sort of exclusivity around certain levels of content if you want to drive people to your new platform. So again, if you take a look at HBO, right, I think it's a very good example. If you look at HBO, they've got their HBO product, which is HBO Go or HBO Now, depending on which way you enter, either through TV Everywhere or through an SVOD. But longer term, now you're seeing the HBO Max product, which is going to be a super rich, deep experience. There'll be a series of very original content that won't be on those other platforms. So both platforms can succeed, but the benefit and what drives people in that case to HBO Max is the fact that there'll be content you cannot find anywhere else. So again, that's where the exclusive part comes in. That's where the leverage comes in. You mentioned Friends is a phenomenal example of that, Seta, simply because Netflix is doing really well, but the loss of Friends definitely is going to put a little, put a little damper on their game. They'll find other ways to succeed. It's not everybody in the world loves Friends, but that was sort of one of those anchor products again, for going to Netflix. Refresh is critical, especially if you're in the SVOD business or in the AVOD business, I would say, simply because if you are building a loyal group of people and they're watching you with high frequency, you want to give them something to come back for. So you really have to have a deep library or a perfectly windowed library, so they're always getting some sort of a unique experience when they come to the platform. And just to jump down to universal search, I mean, just think of what we all do on a daily basis with Google. You go to a site, you find something, or you go to Google, you search on something, and the next thing you know, you've got several options of which way to find what you're looking for. Universal search in the OTT space is more critical than ever, especially as we look at so much content that's available. Again, this is we could carve this out and do another whole day on this, Seta, if you like.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, just going back to licensed content and universal search. So for those of you who may be new to that term, so essentially universal search with like Roku, for example, if I were to go into just, power up my Roku and I were to search for, I don't know, a movie that I like, it would be important for that movie, if I were the publisher, that is available only within my O&O, because then what's going to happen, let's say if I were to, search for the movie Top Gun, that as of right now, I'm sure is going to be available in many different avenues. So it's essential that when it's also licensed, I know some of our clients also potentially have content within other avenues. If you do want to drive more traffic to your O&O, it is important. That's, again, part of the windowing strategy, because that universal search item is so critical. And it's essentially a marketing tool. It's a way to just drive traffic to your app just from a simple search that the user would be doing within the Roku device.
Absolutely.
So Tom, I'm gonna kick this one over to you. Given your background on doing this for over a decade now, it would be great for us to dive into what we would consider the keys to OTT success. I see patience is the first word here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first bullet, patience, planning, consistency. I mean, it is, I would say the key is that it's a long-term play. When you're getting into this, the business, it's not a lot. I think a lot of brands try to get in. They think that, you can set something up and just go, and all of a sudden people are just going to flock to it. I would say back in the early days, and I think there's a few folks out there that are on this, the webinar that would vouch for this, is that, there was a period of time where you could do that. You could launch and you could be in the what's new section for weeks at a time, and you would get that accidental sort of traffic, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. Roku is about to announce quarterly earnings, and they're talking about 40 million units, households with a Roku in there. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of options, so The point is that, you need to have a strategy, and there's nothing's going to replace good old fashioned marketing here as well. I mean, you need to have a marketing plan, and you need to let this sort of bake for a little while. And I would say 6 months minimum, 12 months. You should start to see some increase. You definitely should start to see things if you've got everything lined up right, which is the whole, from both the content strategy and the planning, your marketing, and both the app experience and what you're putting in front of the viewer, and your, again, that refreshing of the library, keeping it. There's a lot of levers that you're having to pull behind the scenes, but if you can do that right, you'll see traction. You will see traction. And but one of the things that we push at Flow Left is an evaluation period, like an audit period, where we work with our partners for, say, a quarter, and then we sit down, we look at analytics, we look at other data points that we're measuring, and we say, is this strategy working? If it's not, what do we need to do? What do we need to modify and tweak? And then we kind of go through this process, and it is a process. And what it certainly is not is a set it and forget it. You absolutely have to. You can't just launch something and just kind of sit back and wait for the dollars to start rolling in. It's a very much a massaging sort of, again, uh, testing, evaluating, and planning, and being patient. And then that kind of feeds into that all the details matter in these services. I mean, even from a visual perspective, we've preached forever about the ideas around, interface and the relationship between interface and engagement. It just matters. And especially if you think about all the money that is being spent, all the planning, all the analysis, and you're putting together the strategy. I mean, why would you put it into a you know um, an inferior container, or whatever you want to call it, just something that is not where, it's not at the level where it needs to be to capture an audience. I mean, people have Netflix, there's Hulu, there's great options out there. And so, those details, that polish within the application, even just like interface, like, it's ironic we talk about, designing interfaces for these platforms, especially for the 10 foot, the lean back interface. It really should be a very minimalistic approach to an interface. You don't want too much clutter. You want to be able to present users with relevant, personalized content to watch, and let them get there very easily from the home screen. That's the goal. It's less is more. And so that's and we've seen from working with partners that things like screen transitions and low latency. You don't want content taking too long to load. Even like 4 or 5 or 6 seconds is too long for some people. They'll just go somewhere else. So all of these subtle details really do make a difference in the whole success of the service. We take an approach to development where we develop all of our apps natively. There's a handful of folks out there that talk about one solution that gets you everywhere, one technology, and we've seen challenges around that. And so being in the app business for a decade, we've put in the time, because we know that the manufacturers want us to use native tools. And this is the net out for the publisher, is that when there are opportunities to be, say, published in an app store as a featured app or a featured service. Sometimes we've actually had we've heard of services getting kicked out, or not being able to be there, because they've used some sort of foreign library or some other sort of tool that they use to build the app, that it's not what they call native. And so I think that's really important too, just having native app development, being able to have those opportunities when they come about. As we talked about universal search, I mean, this is a no-brainer today. I mean, to not take advantage of the platform's ability to search across all content is just a completed wasted. It's a wasted opportunity. Definitely. We have the capabilities to getting everyone into universal search. Some platforms do have an approval process, but this is something, if you can get there, is a great way to just get these accidental installs, as we call them. As people are just browsing and searching for things, and you're appearing in a list, and that's a huge opportunity, and you need to take advantage of that. And yeah, just kind of going through programming again. A lot of our partners have different distribution. Some are distributing to Netflix and Amazon channels, for example, and just being able to create incentives to get. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, these don't have to be. It's not a mutually exclusive or one or the other type of thing. You want to have these complementary distribution models, and ultimately they feed into each other. But at the end of the day, you'd love to have the bulk of your traffic coming from the direct-to-consumer apps because of that. Just the engagement. You're able to learn more about your audience, that feedback cycle, that feedback loop that you're getting. You're putting out content, you're putting out new features, you're getting feedback. That loop is very important, and you're building that relationship with your audience. You can always make sure that you're giving them what they want. But having that windowing strategy where you have certain titles available in one location and others in another, I think is really important, and it really helps to create a broad distribution that's not sort of overlapping and cannibalizing each other. And then you have, so just getting into the two primary models that we see today, the SVOD and the AVOD. When it comes to SVOD, just things like an easy sign up flow, being able to take advantage of. And I'm a big proponent of, we get questions all the time about, oh geez, is there a way to circumnavigate the the in-app purchasing? We don't want to pay a rev share to the brand, to the manufacturer. And so, I mean, yes, I mean, in some cases there are, some cases there's not, but I actually recommend using the in-app purchase. It just makes the conversion process a lot easier. Most cases, credit cards already on file. That compulsive purchase moment when that user is saying, "I want to watch this here. I just want to, I just want to pay." Why would you not take advantage of that? So, and it just makes it easier. It's just a better consumer experience to give them the ability to sign up right on the platform at that time. And this is pretty widespread and popular nowadays. But just making it very easy to, if you're creating an account on one platform, being able to log in on another platform with that same credentials, and those types of things make the process, and it's very important you take advantage of that. And then with certainly with SVOD, because of the fact that you're capturing a lot of information around the user, you can start to then carve out and personalize the experience. I truly believe that this is the next wave. I mean, I think that apps, or I should say, let me say it a different way, services that exist without a personalization strategy, I think are going to struggle, because again, that makes a phenomenal consumer experience. Just being able to feel that I have this relationship with this brand, they know what I like to watch, they're serving me up relevant information right on the home screen, and maybe some other incentives for various things. But personalization is huge, and being having an SVOD authentication layer allows you to really capture that. And getting into AVOD, just some things, we're seeing a lot of, on the server side, ads. So basically, rather than having, in the early days, we would do this all client side. So meaning that the app itself, the wherever you were, you would actually request an ad. It would stop one video and start the ad, and then go back. And it was just a kind of a really an awkward experience. So, we recommend working with SSPs that support a server-side ads solution. It's just a better, more traditional linear experience, and it looks better. And today we've got the technology now that this is a more of a non-issue. All the kinks are worked out, so this is really the way to go. And then again, finally, just talking about targeted advertising and having a diversified ad inventory. I mean, again, this does matter. Being shown repetitive ads, being shown the wrong ads, inappropriate ads, or just not, it doesn't feel very connected. So we work with a lot of SSPs, and hopefully going to be providing better ads based on data and whatnot. But that's those things, if you can get those, are really, really important. And so, I mean, these are just the high level points. There's a lot to talk about. Each one of these could be their own webinar. But these are the sort of the high level things, the low hanging fruit, so to speak, for the keys to success there.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. I know we only have about 15 minutes left, so I did want to just move on to the next slide. But I think this is super helpful in general, just to keep in mind in terms of, again, the first bullet point, patience, planning, and consistency. It's with some brands, it's certain that they may achieve a higher growth of success much sooner given their brand recognition, et cetera. Other brands, it may take some time in order from a marketing perspective just to get it out there a little bit more. But I do think that, it's essential from, I guess when I'm having conversations with prospects and clients, is for them to understand what's all involved. I know that from the float left perspective, we certainly will handle all the technical aspects, everything from the, the development, the certification, the launch, the maintenance, the support, et cetera. But, there's so many other critical components post-launch that do need to be considered when they are launching OTT services. And that is something that, just again, from the float left perspective, these are items that we walk through with our clients each and every day. So we also do want to make sure that we're providing a consultative approach and letting them know what exactly is, what is it that will help improve their product. Oops. Okay, so it looks like we have the last slide up here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and take this one. So the topic of this is how to market to your audience in this climate of heightened competition. I do think at the end of the day, it's just about tracking your user behavior. So this can be achieved in many ways. If you have an SVOD product, chances are you are able to get a healthy bit of information on that user specifically. If you don't have an SVOD product, meaning there's no form of authentication, there's no email capture, et cetera, you are still able to capture data through your analytics. And again, that's very key and integral when you are selecting your OTT partner, making sure that they provide you with a robust set of analytics, not just on the OTT side, but even just on the video side, whether it's with live or on demand, just making sure that you're able to capture as much information as possible in order to help you make informed decisions, whether it's decisions on your audience from a geographical perspective, decisions on the types of platforms that you should be on, decisions based on the type of content you should be acquiring. So I do think that at the end of the day, it's the behavior of not only the app, but also for the users. And that is only achieved through capturing data, again, whether it's through SVOD or AVOD on a more analytics perspective. And then just, if we were to take a more SVOD approach, there's many different ways we can do this by sending push notifications. These are just examples of ideas, emails or SMS campaigns. And then of course, what that would help you do is make personalized recommendations and customizing the user experience based on what that user specifically watches most. I personally like that when I'm launching Netflix, it does give me recommendations based on what I'm watching. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So this just helps provide a better user experience. Again, that all ties into the UI as well. I do think that at the end of the day, there are various different solutions out there. We have the very templated, out of the box type of solutions, which I can certainly understand do fit within certain budget requirements. But, the more robust solutions are able to capture a little bit more, and it really does provide a better user experience in terms of the longevity of your OTT service. So that is critical, I would say, when, looking for your OTT solutions provider. And I had mentioned this earlier, it can also help you with producing or buying the content that is having a bigger impact on your users. And then, even from a programming perspective, helping you identify which programs, what content, even from a, time of day type of platform, et cetera. So I think, this slide is very marketing centric, but I think that the core of this is analytics and user behavior and being able to capture that information. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move into the Q&A side. I'm going to just go ahead and unshare my screen. So it looks like we have a few questions that were sent to me privately. The first question was universal search. Specifically, I know we talked about implementing it on various platforms. Tom, do you want to maybe talk about what that looks like, and if somebody were to want to implement universal search, for example, on Roku or Apple TV, and maybe we should throw in Fire?
Sure. I mean, just generally speaking, I mean, the process is that, we're creating a sort of a list of the content that we want to make available inside of the search mechanism, and also attached to that are the metadata that's pertinent to that to that title that people are searching on. And then different platforms have different requirements for this, and some platforms do require an approval process to become part of the catalog. I believe Amazon and Apple do require some sort of I don't know what the process in terms of like how lengthy it is compared to Apple versus, I think Apple's a little bit more restrictive than Amazon. But at the end of the day, there's a process to go through to get approval. But once you're approved, we can work with, wherever the content lives, and pull in and create feeds, and then make those feeds available for that search. And that's something that happens. It's a refresh. It's something that we refresh on, every few hours, to make sure that anything that's being added to the library is also being made available inside of the search. Roku is open. Roku does not require any kind of um, approval process to get into that mix. So that's something that, again, when it comes to movies, TV shows, and the like, I mean, those are absolutely, these are ways to gain that critical discovery, especially in the early days. So it's a good way to go.
Okay, great. Um, Another question is regarding our app management platform. Yes, we are happy to do demos. We did not do it on the call today because we wanted to make sure that we covered everything, but we are happy to reach out, or if you'd like to shoot us an email, we're happy to do demos of the AMP and just spend some more time on that, and we're really excited about that. So definitely, let's schedule some time and we'll put that together for you. Another question that we have here is just in general regarding OTT. Given the current, and I think I'm going to just elaborate on this more, so it'll be their question and my question together. Given the current state of what is happening with COVID-19, I think in general, what are Tom and Nick? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where do you think OTT is going? What did this potentially help prove to services that may be on the fence about launching an OTT service? And not only, maybe not a traditional publisher, but what about a sports, type of event, or even like what South by Southwest would happen with them? And, I'd love to hear your thoughts on just what do you think the world will be regarding OTT after COVID-19?
Yeah. So you want me to start, Tom?
Yeah, go for it, Nick. Yep.
So, again, OTT is clearly here to stay. It had already proven that long before COVID-19. However, what this is doing is a couple of things. One thing is it is accelerating the drive to OTT, which is absolutely critical. So, people who are on the fence about jumping in clearly see it as an opportunity. Again, if we look at the very targeted and niche side, we've seen some very big successes with clients that are doing fitness apps. That's probably one of the best examples I can give right now. On the larger side of media, you see a real big game changer in the fact that a company like Disney would jump right in with Frozen 2, right? Whereas in the past it would be windowed to go to theaters, which obviously cannot happen now. So it's taking it right to the Disney Plus platform. That is a huge game changer you would not have seen even 6 months ago. We're seeing companies like Peacock trying to accelerate their plans to jump into the marketplace quicker than they originally planned. And again, just the fact that there were a number, let's say, as big as OTT has already gotten, it's grown substantially with consumers. What I'd be curious to see now is exactly how many people went on to Amazon or to wherever and purchased devices in these last couple of months, and how much it's accelerated the process into the home. Now everybody is not only using OTT products and platforms, but they have an opportunity to sample more. So I think really what it's done more than anything is it's accelerated the entire model tremendously. And there's no turning back. I think, we're going to see permanent effects from this as to the way people consume content.
Yeah, Nick, I completely agree. I think it has accelerated. It's giving people, like you said, maybe folks that were on the fence and maybe they just said, "All right, that's enough. Let's go out and do it." And now they're experiencing it, and it's like, once you've had that experience, it's hard to go back to normal viewing, right? We're even seeing now potential disruption with movie theaters. I mean, Netflix has been doing this now. They're producing films and they're going right to they're distributing right to their channels, obviously. We're seeing some other disruption now with this too. I mean, who knows what could happen with movies going right to the home now. But I do think at the very, very least, there's a much broader audience now that's been exposed to, the benefits of OTT. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I know we have only a few more minutes left, but we do have one more final question. How do you provide the audience research for TV channels as ratings point or universe, and how? And I'm assuming this is irrelevant to just Float Left, but Tom, do you want to maybe shed some light on that?
Sure. Our audience research. So right now, we have an analytics offering that we use to create metrics around, and we're trying to simulate a lot of what you would get as a just using an example as a pay TV network with the affiliates. Trying to replicate that with our current analytics, and things just like watch time, engagement, quartiles, being able to see how far into a particular piece of content someone is watching before they drop off, and if they get to the end, ads consumed, conversions around if it's an SVOD. We're tracking all of these things. These are all the key metrics that we're tracking to ultimately give enough data to the partners if they're in the ad sales, if they're trying to. With a lot of the challenges, what we're trying to do is help ad sales teams that were working in traditional pay TV, and now they're coming into OTT, and their ad sales team are kind of trying to just feel around and try to figure out how to use old processes and methods into this new OTT world. So we're trying to do a lot of that, but it's through just our data and our analytics that we try to replicate and create the audience data. I don't know if that's answering the question or not, but
Well, I think we should be, I think that, I mean, it seems to have answered it, but I think Alan, you and we owe a catch up, so we can talk more about that.
Yeah, happy to hop on a call if you want to dig into more details.
Yeah. But again, thank you everyone for joining today. It was such a pleasure. We had a lot of fun doing these this week. Well, there will be many more webinars to come. Hope you guys are all safe and well. And again, if there's anything, feel free to reach out. We're happy to do additional calls, demos, etc. So thank you again, everyone, and be safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.